The black void of space stretched out before them, an endless abyss dotted with distant stars. Captain Nira Jaren gripped the arms of her command chair, her knuckles turning white. "Report," she snapped, her voice terse and unwavering. "Sensors detect no signs of the Kragath fleet, Captain," her chief tactical officer replied. "They've simply vanished." Nira's jaw tightened. "Impossible. They were right on our tail. We can't have lost them." "I'm telling you, they're gone," the officer insisted. "No warp signatures, no ships, nothing. It's like they just disappeared." Nira's brow furrowed as she processed this information. The Kragath were a tenacious, relentless species. For them to simply vanish was unthinkable. Something was wrong, very wrong. "All stop," she ordered. "Begin a full sensor sweep of the area. I want to know what happened to them." The bridge crew sprang into action, their fingers flying across their consoles. Nira leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Where had the Kragath gone? Had they somehow slipped past the human fleet undetected? Or had something more sinister occurred? "Captain, we're detecting a small vessel adrift in the void." A voice suddenly called out. "It's not Kragath in origin." Nira's eyes narrowed. "Identify it." It's an old Kinteri research vessel, ma'am," the officer replied, a note of confusion in his voice. "Completely disabled, life support failing. We're picking up a single faint biosignature." Nira's heart raced. The Kintari were a reclusive, enigmatic race that had vanished from the galactic stage centuries ago. For one of their ships to be found here, in the middle of nowhere, was unheard of. "Helm, take us in for a closer look," she commanded. "Prepare a boarding party. I want to know what happened to that ship." The sleek human cruiser glided gracefully through the void, closing in on the battered Kinteri vessel. Nira watched tensely as the smaller ship came into view, its hull scarred and pitted from what looked like battle damage. "Life support is failing," the tactical officer reported. "We need to move quickly if we're going to find any survivors." Nira nodded grimly. "Launch the boarding party. I want a full report as soon as they make contact." The captain watched as a sleek shuttlecraft detached from the human ship, streaking towards the adrift Kinteri vessel. Tension hung thick in the air on the bridge as they waited for news. After what felt like an eternity, the comm crackled to life. "Captain, this is Lieutenant Zara. We've boarded the Kinteri ship, and you need to see this." Nira leaned forward, her heart pounding. "What is it, Lieutenant?" It's a survivor, ma'am. But you're not going to believe who it is." Nira felt a chill run down her spine as she listened to the lieutenant's words. "Who is it, Zara?" she asked, her voice tense. It's a human, Captain," Zara replied, her voice tinged with disbelief. "A human woman, barely alive. She's in rough shape, but she's alive." Nira's eyes widened in shock. A human? Here, on an abandoned Kinteri vessel? It was impossible, unthinkable. Humans had never ventured this deep into uncharted space, let alone encountered the reclusive Kinteri. "Bring her aboard immediately," Nira commanded, her mind racing. "I want a full medical team standing by." Captain," Zara acknowledged. "We're securing her now. She's in a bad way, but we'll do everything we can." Nira turned to her crew, her expression grave. "I want a full systems check and a deep scan of that Kinteri ship. I need to know what happened here, and how a human ended up aboard." As the bridge crew sprang into action, Nira steeled herself for what was to come. The discovery of a human, here of all places, could have profound implications for the entire galaxy. She had to tread carefully, lest she unleash a chain of events that could never be undone. Minutes later, the shuttlecraft returned, its payload a fragile, unconscious human woman. Nira watched as the medical team rushed to stabilize her, their faces etched with concern. What's her condition? Nira asked, her voice low. She's in critical condition, Captain, the chief medical officer reported. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, multiple fractures, and internal injuries. She's barely hanging on. Nira's jaw tightened. Do everything you can to save her. I want a full report as soon as you have one. The medical team hurried the woman away, leaving Nira alone on the bridge, her mind whirling. How had a human ended up here, in the heart of Kinteri space? What had happened to her, and to the Kinteri vessel she had been found on? Captain, we've completed our initial scan of the Kinteri ship, the tactical officer reported, breaking the tense silence. The damage is extensive, consistent with a battle. But there's no sign of the Kragath fleet or any other ships in the area. Nira frowned. So what happened to them? I don't know, ma'am, the officer admitted. The Kinteri ship's logs are heavily damaged, but from what we can piece together, it appears they were ambushed and boarded. There was a fierce battle, but the Kinteri were overwhelmed. Nira's eyes narrowed. By whom? The officer hesitated, his expression uneasy. The logs indicate. The attackers were human, Captain. Nira felt a knot of dread form in the pit of her stomach. Human? She repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. That's impossible. I'm afraid it's true, ma'am, the officer said, his tone grim. The logs clearly show a human boarding party, heavily armed and ruthless in their assault. Nira stared out into the endless void, her mind racing. Humans, here, in Kinteri space, attacking and boarding an alien vessel. It defied all logic, all understanding. What could have driven them to such an act? And where were they now? Nira's mind reeled as she processed the tactical officer's words. Humans attacking and boarding a Kinteri vessel. It was unthinkable, impossible. Humanity had never ventured this deep into uncharted space, let alone engaged in such a brazen act of aggression. Are you absolutely certain it was humans? She asked, her voice tense. Yes, Captain, the officer replied, his expression grave. The logs are clear. The attackers were human, well-armed, and highly trained. They overwhelmed the Kinteri defenses and took control of the ship. Nira's jaw tightened. And what happened to the Kinteri crew? The officer hesitated, his eyes downcast. Based on the logs, they were all killed, ma'am. The human boarding party showed no mercy. Nira felt a chill run down her spine. Humans, committing such an act of wanton violence against a peaceful, reclusive race like the Kintari. It defied all that she knew about her own species. And the human woman we found? She asked, her voice low. What connection does she have to all of this? We're still analyzing the data, but it appears she was the sole survivor of the attack, the officer replied. The logs indicate she was found hiding in the ship's medical bay, barely alive. The humans who attacked the vessel seemed to have left her for dead. Nira let out a slow, shaky breath. Bring the woman to the medical bay. I want to speak with her as soon as she's stable. Captain, the officer acknowledged, his expression somber. As the bridge crew returned to their duties, Nira stared out into the endless void, her mind racing. What had driven these humans to such an act of brutality, and where were they now? She knew that the discovery of this human survivor could have profound implications for the entire galaxy. If word of this incident were to spread, it could shatter humanity's reputation, and perhaps even provoke retaliation from other races who had long seen them as a benevolent, peaceful species. Nira grimaced. She would have to tread carefully, lest she unleash a chain of events that could never be undone. The future of her species, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. As the medical team worked tirelessly to stabilize the human woman, Nira couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger and far more dangerous conflict. The galaxy had just been turned on its head, and she knew that she and her crew would be at the forefront of whatever was to come. Hours later, Nira stood at the bedside of the human woman, her expression grave. The medical team had managed to stabilize her, but her condition remained critical. "How is she?" Nira asked the chief medical officer, her voice low. "Holding on," but barely, the officer replied, his brow furrowed. "She's severely dehydrated, malnourished, and her injuries are extensive. It's a miracle she's still alive." Nira nodded, her gaze fixed on the unconscious woman. "Have you been able to determine her identity?" "Yes, ma'am," the officer said. "According to the data in her bioscan, her name is Dr. Evelyn Sinclair. She's a renowned xenobiologist who's been missing for over a decade." Nira's eyes widened. "Evelyn Sinclair?" "The same Evelyn Sinclair who disappeared while exploring uncharted space." "The very same," the officer confirmed. "It seems she was somehow stranded on that Kinteri vessel after what happened." Nira's jaw tightened. "And what exactly did happen, according to the logs?" The officer hesitated, his expression pained. "It was brutal, Captain. The human boarding party stormed the Kinteri ship, overwhelmed the crew, and killed them all. Dr. Sinclair was the only survivor, and they left her for dead." Nira felt a surge of anger and revulsion. "Unforgivable," she hissed. "How could any humans do such a thing?" "I wish I had an answer, ma'am," the officer said, shaking his head. "The logs indicate that humans were highly trained, well-equipped, and ruthless in their assault. They showed no mercy, no remorse." Nira's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "This cannot be allowed to stand. We must find those responsible and bring them to justice." "I agree, Captain," the officer said, his expression grim. "But first, we need to get Dr. Sinclair back on her feet. She may be the only one who can shed light on what happened." Nira nodded, her gaze returning to the unconscious woman. "Do whatever it takes to save her. I need to speak with her as soon as possible." "Understood, ma'am," the officer said, already turning to give orders to his team. As Nira watched the medical staff work, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in the pit of her stomach. The discovery of this human survivor had opened up a Pandora's box, and she knew that the consequences could be far-reaching and devastating. Whatever had driven these humans to such an act of brutality, she was determined to uncover the truth and bring them to justice. The future of her species, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Days later, Nira stood at the bedside of the now conscious Dr. Evelyn Sinclair, her expression stern but tinged with concern. "Dr. Sinclair," she said, her voice formal but not unkind. "I'm Captain Nira Jerin of the UES Athena. Can you tell me what happened to you?" Evelyn's gaze was weary, but there was an unmistakable steel in her eyes. "Captain Jerin," she replied, her voice hoarse. I'm not entirely sure. The last thing I remember is the Kinteri ship being boarded. They were ruthless, killing everyone in sight." Nira's jaw tightened. "Yes, we've reviewed the logs. The attackers were human, weren't they?" Evelyn's eyes widened in shock. "Human? That can't be. Humans have never ventured this deep into uncharted space. That's precisely why we're so concerned," Nira said, her expression grave. "Can you tell us anything about the humans who attacked the Kinteri vessel?" Evelyn closed her eyes, her brow furrowed in concentration. "They were highly trained, well-equipped. I'd never seen anything like it. They stormed the ship, overwhelmed the Kinteri defenses, and," her voice trailed off, a shudder passing through her. "And?" Nira prompted, her tone gentle but insistent. "They killed them all," Evelyn whispered, her eyes glistening with tears. "The Kinteri crew, they showed no mercy. I hid in the medical bay, but they found me. I thought they were going to kill me too, but," she shook her head, a look of bewilderment crossing her features. But they left you alive, Nira finished, her brow furrowing. Evelyn nodded, her expression haunted. I don't understand it. Why would they do this? What could have driven humans to such brutality? Nira's gaze hardened. That's what we intend to find out, Dr. Sinclair. This cannot be allowed to stand. Evelyn met Nira's gaze, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. Then you must stop them, Captain. Whatever their motives, this cannot be allowed to happen again. Nira nodded solemnly. Rest assured, we will do everything in our power to bring those responsible to justice. But first, we need to understand what happened here. She leaned forward, her expression intense. Tell me, Dr. Sinclair, what were you doing on that Kinteri vessel? What was your mission? Evelyn hesitated, her gaze darting around the room as if searching for the right words. I was exploring uncharted space, studying alien civilizations. The Kinteri were a fascinating people, so reclusive and enigmatic. I was hoping to learn more about them, to establish diplomatic ties. Nira's brow furrowed. And how did you end up stranded on their ship? Evelyn's expression darkened. We were attacked, ambushed by an unknown alien force. The Kinteri fought back, but they were overwhelmed. The ship was crippled, and I was the only one who survived. Nira's eyes narrowed. What can you tell me about this unknown alien force? Evelyn shook her head. I'm sorry, Captain, but I don't know much. They struck without warning, their ships appearing out of nowhere. All I know is that they weren't human. Nira's jaw tightened. But the human boarding party that attacked the Kinteri ship, they came after the initial attack. Evelyn nodded, her expression grim. Yes, they must have tracked the Kinteri vessel, or perhaps they were already in the area. I don't know. All I know is that they were ruthless, merciless in their assault. Nira leaned back, her mind racing. This is a lot to take in, Dr. Sinclair, but your information is invaluable. We need to find out who these humans were, and why they did this. Evelyn's gaze hardened. Then you must stop them, Captain. Whatever their motives, they cannot be allowed to continue the rampage unchecked. Nira nodded, her expression resolute. I give you my word, Dr. Sinclair. We will find them, and we will bring them to justice. With that, Nira turned and strode from the room, her mind already formulating a plan of action. The fate of the galaxy might very well hang in the balance. Nira's mind raced as she pored over the data from the Kinteri vessel, her brow furrowed in concentration. The discovery of Dr. Evelyn Sinclair and the horrific events that had unfolded on the ship had shaken her to the core. Captain, we've completed our analysis of the Kinteri ship's logs, her chief tactical officer reported, his voice somber. The details are disturbing, to say the least. Nira looked up, her gaze intense. Give me the details, Commander. The officer took a deep breath. According to the logs, the Kinteri vessel was attacked without warning by an unknown alien force. They were outmatched and outgunned, but they fought back fiercely. In the end, the ship was crippled, and the entire Kinteri crew was killed. Nira's jaw tightened, and then the human boarding party arrived. The officer nodded, his expression pained. Yes, ma'am. They tracked the disabled Kinteri ship and staged a ruthless assault. The logs show that they were highly trained, well-equipped, and showed no mercy. They killed every Kinteri they encountered. Nira felt a surge of anger. Unforgivable. What could have driven humans to such an act? I wish I had an answer, Captain, the officer replied, shaking his head. The logs indicate the human boarding party was searching for something, but they don't specify what. They tore the ship apart, ransacking every compartment, before finally leaving Dr. Sinclair for dead. Nira's eyes narrowed. And what of this unknown alien force that attacked the Kinteri ship first? The officer's expression grew troubled. That's the concerning part, ma'am. The logs don't provide much detail, but they indicate the attacking ships were unlike anything the Kinteri had encountered before. Advanced technology, strange propulsion systems, and a ruthless, merciless approach to combat. Nira felt a chill run down her spine. Do we have any way to identify these attackers? Unfortunately, no, the officer replied. The Kinteri sensors were overwhelmed, and the logs were heavily damaged. We have no information on the visual or technological signatures of the attacking ships. Nira drummed her fingers on the arm of her chair, her mind racing. This is a troubling development, Commander. We're dealing with not one, but two potential threats, one human, one alien. And we have no idea who or what we're up against. The officer nodded, his expression grave. Precisely, Captain. We need to act quickly before this situation spirals out of control. The implications could be devastating, not just for the Kintari, but for the entire galaxy. Nira's gaze hardened. Then we have no time to waste. Helm, set a course for the nearest Kintari colony. We need to warn them of this threat and gather whatever information we can. Captain, the helmsman responded, his fingers flying across the console. As the sleek human vessel surged through the void, Nira couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had taken hold of her. Whatever was happening out here, in the uncharted reaches of space, it was clear that the galaxy was on the brink of a conflict unlike anything they had ever seen. And she knew that her crew, and her entire species, were at the heart of it. The UES Athena dropped out of warp, its powerful engines humming as it approached the Kintari colony world. Nira stood on the bridge, her expression grim. "Hail the colony, Commander," she ordered, her voice terse. "We need to warn them about what happened to the Kintari vessel." The comm officer nodded, his fingers flying across his console. After a moment, a holographic image shimmered to life, revealing the face of a Kintari elder, his features etched with concern. "Captain Jurin," the elder said, his voice tinged with wariness. "This is an unexpected visit. What brings you to our colony?" Nira took a deep breath. "Elder, I'm afraid I have grave news. One of your vessels, a research ship, has been attacked and destroyed. The entire crew was killed." The elder's eyes widened in shock. Impossible. How could this have happened? According to the logs, the ship was first attacked by an unknown alien force. Nira explained, her expression grave. They were outmatched and outgunned, but they fought bravely. Then, a human boarding party arrived and killed the remaining Kintari crew. The elder's face contorted with a mix of horror and disbelief. Humans? Attacking a Kintari vessel? This cannot be. Nira nodded solemnly. "I'm afraid it's true, Elder. We have the logs to prove it. The humans were highly trained, well-equipped, and showed no mercy." The elder's hands trembled as he processed this information. This is a grave development indeed. The Kintari have had no contact with humans for centuries. What could have driven them to such an act? Nira shook her head. "I wish I knew, Elder. But that's not all. The ship was also attacked by an unknown alien force before the humans arrived. We have no information on the identity or origin of these attackers." The elder's brow furrowed in concern. "This is deeply troubling news, Captain. Our people must be warned, and we must take steps to defend ourselves." Nira nodded. "That's why I'm here, Elder. I need to know if you have any information that could help us identify the attackers or understand the motives behind the human assault." The elder's expression darkened. "Unfortunately, we have no such information. The Kintari have long been isolated from the affairs of the broader galaxy. We are not even sure what has become of our lost colony ship." Nira's jaw tightened. "Then we will have to investigate this matter ourselves, Elder. I give you my word that we will do everything in our power to bring those responsible to justice and to protect your people." The elder's gaze softened slightly. "I appreciate your concern, Captain Jurin. Please, do what you must to uncover the truth. The fate of the Kinteri may rest in your hands. Nira nodded solemnly. We will not fail you, Elder. Athena out. As the holographic image winked out, Nira turned to her crew, her expression grim. We have our work cut out for us, everyone, she said, her voice resolute. We need to find out who these human attackers are, and why they chose to target the Kinteri. And we need to discover the identity of this unknown alien force that first attacked the Kinteri vessel. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the bridge. The fate of the Kinteri, and perhaps the entire galaxy, may depend on our success. We cannot afford to fail. Nira paced the length of the bridge, her mind racing as she considered their next move. The discovery of the human attack on the Kinteri vessel had shaken her to the core, raising more questions than it had answered. Commander, have we detected any signs of the human boarding party's ship or their current location? She asked, her gaze fixed on the tactical officer. Negative, Captain, the officer replied, his expression grim. The logs indicate they left the Kinteri vessel shortly after the attack, and we detected no trace of them in the surrounding systems. Nira's brow furrowed in frustration. Damn it. They've covered their tracks well. What's more, the officer continued, we've been unable to find any evidence of the unknown alien force that initially attacked the Kinteri ship. Their ships seem to have disappeared without a trace. Nira's jaw tightened. This is unacceptable. We can't just let them vanish into the void. I understand your urgency, Captain, the officer said, his tone measured. But we're operating in uncharted territory here. Without any leads or concrete information, we're essentially searching for ghosts. Nira knew he was right, but the weight of the situation was wearing on her. The fate of the Kinteri, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Then we'll have to start from scratch, she said, her voice resolute. Gather all the data we have on the Kinteri vessel, the human attackers, and this unknown alien force. I want every detail, no matter how small. Captain, the officer acknowledged, already turning to relay the orders. As the bridge crew sprang into action, Nira stared out into the void, her mind whirring. She knew that the answers they sought were out there, hidden in the vast, uncharted expanse of space. But the thought of what they might uncover, and the consequences it could have, filled her with a sense of dread. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Kinteri colony, the comm officer suddenly announced, breaking the tense silence. Nira turned, her brow furrowed. Put it through. The holographic image of the Kinteri elder flickered to life, his expression grave. Captain Jurin, I'm afraid I have more troubling news, he said, his voice tinged with urgency. Our colony has just been attacked by the same unknown alien force that destroyed the research vessel. Nira felt her heart sink. Attacked? What happened? Our defenses were overwhelmed, the elder replied, his hands trembling. They struck without warning, their ships cutting through our defenses like they were nothing. Many of our people have been killed, and the colony itself is in ruins. Nira's jaw tightened. Have you been able to gather any information on the attackers? The elder shook his head, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and desperation. No, Captain. They disappeared as quickly as they came, leaving only death and devastation in their wake. We're barely holding on. Nira's expression hardened. Elder, I give you my word that we will do everything in our power to stop these invaders and bring them to justice. But we need your help. Any information you can provide, no matter how small, could be crucial. The elder nodded, his expression grim. I understand, Captain. We will do what we can to assist you. But time is of the essence. Our people are running out of hope. We'll be there as soon as we can, Nira promised, her voice resolute. Athena out. As the holographic image winked out, Nira turned to her crew, her eyes narrow with determination. You heard the elder, she said, her voice strong and commanding. Our mission just became a matter of life and death for the Kinteri. We need to move fast, and we need to move smart. Prepare the ship for immediate departure. Her crew snapped to attention, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and resolve. Captain, they responded in unison. Nira clenched her fists, her gaze fixed on the void before them. Whatever awaited them, she knew that the fate of the Kintari, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Failure was not an option. As the Athena surged forward, her powerful engines propelling her towards the besieged Kinteri colony, Nira steeled herself for the challenges that lay ahead. This was no longer just a matter of uncovering the truth. It was a fight for the very survival of an entire race. And she was determined to win.